Morning everyone. Welcome back to Mr. Businessman. I hope I find you well. Didn't do any streams last week because it was half term. We still have half terms in this brave new world. Um, and I thought, you know what? You deserve a rest, Ryan. You've been working flat out for weeks and weeks and weeks. You know, you worked right over Easter. Um, you deserve a rest. And you know how rested I feel? Not rested at all. I feel much worse actually. I feel much more tired now, and I think it's because your sleeping goes all out the window, doesn't it? You're just sort of up all night, and like whatever. So yeah. So anyway, hello. I hope I find you well, as I said, and we're going to talk about a new concept today. We're going to talk about a new second year concept. I thought we talked about this in the first year, but we must not have because I looked back on them and I haven't got a video for this, which I was surprised of. But we're going to talk about it a little bit today. It's called Ansoffs Matrix. It's a new matrix. They love a matrix on in business. So we've got a couple now. Boston Matrix is another one that we've already talked about. And if you can't remember what that is, go back and watch one of the videos about it. All right. So we'll jump straight into it. I know the news has been pretty crazy over the last couple of days, so we'll try and keep it as light as we can. I don't really want to wade into everything that's been happening in the last couple of weeks, or rather the last week, because I usually try and give you something a bit upbeat, don't I? But we're living in crazy times, aren't we? Everything seems to be a bit depressing at the minute. But anyway, so let's get into Ansoff's Matrix, and we'll see what we can do. So here we are. I hope the audio is okay as well. I put this little pop shield thing on my mic. I think it's supposed to help, not like overdo things, but I won't be able to tell until the end. But I hope it's good, or maybe it's not made any difference at all. Perhaps it hasn't. Anyway, so this is it, Ansoff's Matrix. So, Ansoff's Matrix is essentially a way of decision making for a business, and what I like about Ansoff's Matrix is it's a usable thing. So a lot of the time in business, you get pieces of theory like. Another really usable piece of theory which I like is the motivation theorist, Taylor and that, because they offer real world examples of how you would implement these things, and I really like that. And why I like the subject in general is the real world application of it, really, because I think that you spend so much time in school and that learning things which have no real consequence or effect on the world, and they're not that usable. But this one is one of the usable ones as well, which is really, really good. So this is what we're going to have a look at. It says, explain the nature and purpose of Ansoff's Matrix to different businesses. Evaluate the usefulness of Ansoff's Matrix to different businesses. Okay. So, what is the Ansoff Matrix? So, the Ansoff Matrix approaches the product mix or product management from a different point of view to the product lifecycle analysis or Boston Matrix. So, whilst we're doing it, let's just have a little recap of what these are, because we've definitely got videos on both of these, but if you can't remember, go back and have a look. Let's just recap what they are. All right. So, the product lifecycle, if you remember, is a thing like that. And it goes into different. It's a visual representation of the life and death of a product, isn't it? And you can do it for all different types of products. You can do it for product ranges. You can do it for styles of things. And if you remember, it goes into introduction, and you can see how it grows into the growth, into the saturation, into the decline stage, and things like that. And you have things like extension strategies, don't you, that help it carry on. So if you remember, the product life cycle is really good because it allows us to physically see. Especially if we've got quite a few different products, we can have different product life cycles for them. That we can match up the product life cycle so as one is declining, the other one is taking off. And things like that. We don't have to, but it's something that we can do, which can be quite helpful to us, can't we? And then we have the Boston Matrix, all right? Now, the Boston Matrix is something slightly different. And the Boston Matrix is to do with cash cows, and it's to do with, you know, stars, and it's to do with question marks and things like that. And basically, what that one's for is that you can get your product range, all the different products that you make, and you can lay them out to show whether they are that you have a dominance in that market. So in terms of its high growth area, and you have a high percentage of market share of that thing, or if it's a not particularly growing market, but you have a dominance in it, or it's a not dominant market and you don't have. It's not a very growing market. It's a slow growth market, and you don't have a dominance in it as well. So it's quite helpful in that regard, isn't it? You know, you can actually use it, and together they're really good because you know use them for different things, aren't they? But it's all about developing strategy at this point. Now the Ansoffs Matrix you can use with those. All right, so don't and a brilliant bit of technique that I try and tell my students to carry on with. Is don't forget to bring in bits of the spec from other places. You know, like, so these are very similar, aren't they? These are usually put in the marketing bit, and they are usually, because we're talking about product portfolios and we're talking about the variations on the theme, we're talking about strategy. But don't worry about, you know, implementing things from other places. You know, talking about product lifecycle in a question which isn't directly linked to the product lifecycle, as long as it applies to what you're talking about, as long as it gives credit, as long as it gives a bit of depth, as long as it helps, as long as it backs up, whatever it is that you're trying to prove with your point, as long as it does that, then you're good to go, aren't you? There's no need to, you know, that you will get credit for that, and that's something you should be doing all the time as much as you physically can. All right, so instead of focusing on the profitability or sales, because remember we talked about those with the other two, the Ansoffs Matrix outlines the options open for firms if they wish to grow. Okay, so the product life cycle and the Boston Matrix are more of a here and now approach, aren't they? They're a snapshot in time. I mean, the product life cycle is kind of a snapshot in time, and it's a prediction of what's going to happen in terms of where are we now, what's likely to happen, because we can kind of, okay, well, if we're here now, we can compare it to other products of a similar type. It could keep going up, but this is where we think it's going to be. This is the decline. This is what the decline has been on other products. This is what we think the decline is going to be on this. So you've got a kind of an idea of the future a little bit with that. Obviously, the future, we don't know. We can only go off a certain amount of past data, can't we? And then the Boston Matrix, that gives us like a snapshot in time, doesn't it, of the products that we have at the minute. Well, the Ansoffs Matrix looks at growth and kind of pushes us towards us deciding what the future is going to be for our business, and it helps us, it guides us in the way of doing that as well. All right, so this is what the Ansoffs Matrix looks like. Ansoffs model examines options available in terms of products a firm can offer and the markets it competes in. So in essence, it suggests that a firm can decide to pursue one of the following marketing strategies. All right, now when we talk about marketing strategies, don't get confused and start thinking, you know, that we mean... oh, 1 second. Why has that done that? Was it like that? Was it like that to begin with? Sorry, I've just realised something. Where are we? Just one moment. There we go. Bit of a treat there for you. Oh. Yeah. Sorry, it was just the thing at the bottom, the little thing I have on it. Let me just... yeah. I don't know what happened then. But anyway, sorry about that. I just brought that little thing in at the bottom again. It just makes it look better, doesn't it? I need you to get full quality out of these. Anyway, so examines the options available in terms of products a firm can offer and the markets it competes in. In essence, it suggests that a firm can decide to pursue one of the following things, like we said. So, what are we actually talking about here? Well, there's 4 different options, and of the 4 options, they give us 4 distinct things that we can do. Okay, so first of all, we've got to decide whether we're going to go high risk or low risk. The newer the things, the more that we're going into new markets with new products. We're going into things which we've not handled before. We're going into markets which we haven't developed or worked in before. The more the more risky it will be, which seems obvious, doesn't it? And it is obvious in that regard. If you're going into, it's like me saying now, like if I was to say to you, can you pass a basic, I don't know, a maths test? Well, you probably can because you've studied maths a lot before, haven't you? It's a market which you know well. For a long period of time. You might not like it. When people say that they don't like maths, it's not that they don't like maths; they don't like maths lessons. But if I was to say, I don't know, can you do a Portuguese test? Chances are that would be a hell of a lot more difficult for you because it's something that you've probably, chances are, unless you're Portuguese watching this or have some kind of link to Portuguese, you've probably not got that much experience with it. So therefore, it will be significantly harder for you to do. So it's the same type of thing with this. So what we do is we have a look at what we give it 4 different names, but essentially what we're saying is if it's an existing market, an existing product, or is it an existing market with a new product? Is it a new market with an existing product, or is it a new market and a new product? There are 4 options. Okay, so let's go through each one of these bit by bit now, and explain them. Okay, so first things first, we've said here. Let's go with number 1. So we've got market penetration. Now, market penetration in this one is when we have got an existing market to an existing product. All right. Now, an existing market and existing product is the easiest thing to do. It's the least risky option because we are only selling products which we already sell. So we're not developing our product range or anything like that. We're doing things that we already sell, and we're selling them to a market that we already sell to. So it's like Apple doing, a new computer or Nike doing some new shoes. Yeah, well, it's pretty simple, isn't it? They already do that. They already know. It's not like Nike going into a completely different industry. They're selling a product which they already sell, and they do continue to that. Just a word of advice as well, or rather a word of advice, but word of knowledge for you. Apparently, Nike have just done some shoes with Ben and Jerry's. So if you're interested, have a look. Nike and Ben and Jerry's have just done a collaboration and released some shoes together. They look pretty cool, actually. They've got they look like cow spots on them. But yeah, so first of all, market more of its products to an existing customer. That's exactly what you want to do. And then we can take it one step further by looking at how we would do this, but we'll look at that in a second. Next one, it says number 2, if we've got the same market, so if it's Nike, we're looking at shoes market, we're looking at, apparel markets, things like that. But we've got a new product, all right? Now, this will be something which we've not worked on before. So for them, it could be, existing market like sportswear, something like that. But they might bring out, I don't know, snowboarding stuff instead. It's, well, could that be in a new market? Yeah, it could be potentially, couldn't it? Well, in this one, you could I mean, it depends on the circumstance as well, doesn't it? In terms of what these are classed as, because if you could say, well, the snowboarding gear is the new thingy, but it would depend on if Nike were already in that market or not. They probably are. But if we said this a new product, they could bring out, I don't know, skateboards, because they're definitely in the skateboarding industry already. So they've got that market, haven't they? So they could bring out skateboards instead because they're already deeply in that market. They're already ingrained in that. People associate Nike with that and skaters and skating shoes and stuff like that. So potentially you could do something like that. Obviously, it depends on the circumstance, though. Now, the third one, it says market its existing product to new customers. Now, this is it's a little bit. It's more risky than market penetration, but it's less risky than diversification. So if we do market development, what we can do is we can say, what products do we already have that we could maybe sell to a brand new market? And a good example for this would be Lucozade. So Lucozade used to be sort of a pharmaceutical thing. It used to be sold in pharmacies. So if you'd had diarrhea, or if you'd had, a a bad head or you'd been ill, then you'd go to the pharmacy and buy some Lucozade, and it would help get the electrolytes back into your body and things like that. They decided that they were going to change. They weren't going to change the existing product. It was exactly the same. They rebranded it, exactly the same product, but they were going to go to a new market, which was sports users. And it was fantastically useful, fantastically successful for them to do that, and make Lucozade into this massive sports brand, very much like Gatorade in America, isn't it? I don't know if you know about Gatorade, but Gatorade's very much that kind of same-esque thing as Lucozade here. Not the same company that I'm aware of, but yeah, they did. So, existing product, Lucozade drink, instead of selling it to people through a pharmacy, through a pharmaceutical thing for a certain purpose, we sell it to a new market. We sell it to just people who like the taste, or they want a sugary drink, or they are sports users and they need whatever it is. I don't know if it actually does give you any help on the field or the track or whatever it is, but they claim it does, don't they? Now the final one, the riskiest one, is brand new markets, new product diversification, complete diversification. And I'd say the best company that you could talk about diversification for is probably Virgin. Virgin do extreme diversification, don't they? They started off as a record shop, Virgin Records. They went into Virgin Atlantic, which is a completely different industry, completely different product, doing long haul flights. They've gone into everything, and if you have a look online, you can find if you just put Virgin brands in, you can find there's hundreds of the things. They've done all sorts, everything from like Virgin balloon tours to Virgin Cola, and they haven't been successful in all of them. And that's a point. That's what, because it's so risky. They're not always successful in everything that they do. But when they are successful, they tend to stamp out a name for themselves. And Virgin are one of the unusual ones of doing that so often. Excuse me. Other companies do it, but never as successfully as Virgin usually. So can you see that as you go from market penetration, something which we already sell to an already sold market, it's the least risky. There is always risk involved because it won't always work, and we might spend money on marketing campaigns and things like that. But we can minimize it, can't we, there? But as you go to diversification, a completely different thing, and you've got to think about our connections to that market as well. So like I talked about Portuguese, I don't know any Portuguese words. I know a couple of French ones, but I don't know any Portuguese words. So if I was to do that, that would be me throwing myself into a completely untested waters. I don't know any suppliers. I don't know how they do business there. I don't know how I don't have any connections to that anywhere. So just if companies do want to do that, if they do want to do someone like supermarkets, Tesco tried to do market development, existing products to new markets. They tried international markets with the same products as they have here. They tried the supermarket thing, but in different international grounds, and it didn't work. They tried America with Fresh and Easy. If you're interested, have a look at Fresh and Easy on YouTube and things like that, and have a look at how much money they put into it, and it just fell to bits. Massive failure for them. And they've tried it with different places. But then again, you get other companies going into international markets and being very, very successful. So you just never know. And if behemoths like Tesco are struggling to do it, with such a dominance, a monopoly or a technical monopoly in the British food market, you would say that they would probably be pretty likely to be able to succeed, but in this case it wasn't. So don't always assume that if they're a dominant company that they're going to be okay and that they're going to do well. There's still a massive risk to it, and there is always them unknowns, and there is always chance and elements, and the your stakeholders being bought into it and your competitors doing other things. You don't know, do you? But you can only do what you can do. All right. So they're the four different ones anyway, and they're the four decisions that you've got to make, really. Now, where do they sit in your sort of what you're doing? And if you remember, we talked about objectives. If you can't remember, go back and have a look at it. Corporate objectives, the main objectives, aren't they? Not really achievable. Overall aims and things like that. The overall aims of the business, the market statement, Mission statement is the one that's not really achievable. Corporate aims are the ones that are the really big ones, aren't they? The overall company aims. Then we've got our marketing objectives. Analyze your strengths and weaknesses. Can you remember the bit of theory that we used for that? Analyzing your strengths and weaknesses. SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Analyze the external environment. So you've got there your strengths and weaknesses are your internal, haven't you? Analyze your external. You've got opportunities and threats. Then you can decide your marketing strategy. Your marketing strategy's here, can't you? You've got. Do you want to go into a brand new market? Do you want to do something you've never done before? Do you want to go into something you know about? I mean, I think as well, don't underestimate Ansoffs Matrix, because although it might sound quite simple, it provides real-world usable things, doesn't it? Like, if you're going to do market penetration, existing product to an existing market, how are you physically going to do that? You're just going to do, if it's a product you already sell to an already product, what could you do? Do a sale. Do a small sale. 10% off. We know about price elasticity, don't we, and things like that. So that would impact on it. I mean, obviously, if it's elastic, it'll impact on it a lot more than if it was inelastic. But product development, what can you do for that kind of stuff? It's pretty obvious, that one, isn't it? What you physically can do to do it. You develop that product, but doing your market research beforehand to actually find out what people want. Market development, going into markets which you've already scoped out, not just going into anything. Diversification, yes, it's going to be something completely different. Like Ben and Jerry's doing shoes with Nike, it's completely different, isn't it? But they're not turning themselves into a shoe shop. They can do one-off things. It can be a bit unusual sometimes, companies doing weird things. So you've got to decide what your strengths and weaknesses, what your opportunities are, whether these actually help you out with those. And we've got implement your marketing strategy then. So implement whatever it is that you're going to do. And you can do a combination of these things as well, which can be rather helpful. And then finally, we review this and then go back to the start again. Make sure that you're continuously checking over those objectives. Make sure everybody's on the same page. Make sure that you are checking your external environment. Because remember, whilst we can have a look at these things and make sure that they make sense and things like that, they are always going to be more difficult to keep track of, aren't they? They're always going to be changing. The external environment changes constantly. Competitors do things which changes your life all the time and things like that. So it's to be kept in mind at all times that you need to keep reviewing. All right. Okay. So this is a little exercise I'd like you to have a go at. So you can feel free to pause the stream, feel free to pause the video and have a little look at it. But let's have a look at what the AO3 would be. So I'll give you an AO1 point, and then you give me some AO3. You give me the explanation for it, okay? So it says here, clearly shows the options available, okay? So if it clearly shows the options available, why is that good? Why is it? Explain it. What does it? What's the effect of that? Okay. So if it clearly shows the options available, it makes making decisions, big decisions, strategy decisions, easier for the company to do, doesn't it? It means that there's going to be less likely to make big mistakes based on misunderstanding of the options available. And it can mean that everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, really, isn't it? Everybody's on the same page of what we're doing. Okay? Enables managers to consider the pros, cons, and risks of each strategy to enable better decision making. Okay? Why is that important to us? Well, one of the most important things is strategy, and the further you go into business studies, the further you go into like sort of degree level things and things like that, the more you will find out about strategy, the more you will actually physically do on strategy. Most of the degree level stuff is just on business strategy. So it's really important because it makes the biggest decisions. It's decision making at the end of the day, isn't it? So it's remember we talked about scientific decision making, and we talked about going with your gut and things like that. Non-scientific as they call it. This can help try to make it that little bit more scientific, gives them a bit of data to go off, in terms of we've actually done some market research maybe to back up ourselves. We've actually done some number crunching. We've actually got some data together before we're just making decisions. We don't have to. There's no necessity to do that for Ansoffs Matrix, but it's something that can help us out. So it'll hopefully enable better decision making. If we do better decision making, then that'll lead to better decisions, higher quality decisions. Higher quality decisions will hopefully lead to better outcomes, whether that's revenue or brand recognition or having a market share or whatever it is. Hopefully leading to more revenue and things like that inevitably. The model poses the question. The model does pose questions which can be asked in the context of the business to enable appropriate decisions to the situation. So, if we just look back at it, it does, doesn't it? It does ask questions. It asks whether we want to be existing markets, existing products, whether we want to go into new products with new markets, if we want to do existing products in new markets, existing products in existing markets, whatever it is that we're trying to physically do. And it allows us to answer the question, which is easier than trying to come up with something ourselves, isn't it? Sometimes we just need to ask the right question. So if we said to you now, okay, well, what do you want to do with your business? You might say, well, actually, I want to. I'm trying to get some market share up, and you say, okay, market share. What market are you looking at? And you're going, well, I'm in, leather briefcases. All right, so you're a leather briefcase company, yeah. All right, well, and what's the main thing? Well, I think it's just I want to do something new. I want to do something new for this. I want something to go along with it. I want like a product which you can sell, a complementary product to this. All right, okay, so we're talking about, you talking more. Well, which one is this? We're talking about more of a product development then, are we? Are we talking about a new product in an existing market? Are you still going to be selling them to the same people, but just a new product? Yeah, I want something that's complementary. You don't want to make, I don't know, rollerblades, because that would be diversification. Yeah, I want to do that. So you can kind of quite easily see where it'd be, and you can kind of measure the risk and talk about the risk a little bit as well, can't you? A strategic tool that supports managers in looking to the future. All right. So as I said, it's good for looking at things in the future. It's good at looking things. Not just looking at the here and now, but trying to make decisions moving forward as well. It can be really, really helpful for that. And anything that will try and minimise risk of moving towards the future is going to be helpful to us, isn't it? Because at least we're making structured decisions. At least we're making decisions which are based on, let's move towards this, rather than just randomly going that way and deciding that when we get there. Okay. A couple of limitations for the Ansoffs Matrix, and they said Boston Matrix then. It does not make the decision or answer the questions it poses. That's up to the management. So if you've got low quality management, or if your management aren't up to it, then they're not going to be able to answer the questions. So it doesn't help you too much. A large amount of businesses' problems are the fact that they've got poor quality management anyway, isn't it? It just makes it worse in that regard. As with most models on its own, it's unlikely to be enough to conclude the best marketing strategy. So that's what we're talking about. Product life cycle, Boston Matrix, Ansoffs Matrix. Use them together. Use them as a three-pronged attack. Do your analysis. Do your market research. Make sure that you know your market. Make sure you're doing your SWOT analysis. Make sure you do your pesto analysis to actually check what is going on. It's a generic model. At which point should it be an individual business take greater risks? It is a generic model, and it is difficult to decide, because at the end of the day, it's your decision, doesn't it? It doesn't tell you, okay, you've got to this certain stage in your business, you're now ready to take the plunge into diversification. It doesn't tell you that. It's up to management to consider the context of the business and its internal and external influences. That's what you do in the exam, isn't it? That's what you're, as a student of business, that's what you're here to do. You're here to consider the influences and consider the situation and make a sensible decision. But remember, a hell of a lot of people, the vast, vast majority of business people, have not got any formal business training. And that's not to say that you're going to be better at making decisions than they are, but they won't necessarily know anything about these theories and they won't be able to use them. So, hopefully you'll be able to demonstrate in the exam, or you will be able to demonstrate because you've been practicing for so long, but you'll be able to demonstrate in the exam, your ability to weigh up two options, do some really good AO4 and suggest the best alternative and things like that. And it doesn't guarantee the strategy chosen will be successful. Remember, in terms of we go from least risk top left to most risk bottom right. Least risk top left, most risk diversification bottom right. Okay, and it makes sense, doesn't it? So you've got market penetration is most risk, product development and market development are medium risk, diversification is most risk, because we're changing two elements, aren't we? Okay. Now, should a business use Ansoffs Matrix? Okay. Now, this is your AO4, isn't it? So if you get a question in the exam that says something like, evaluate the effectiveness of using Ansoffs Matrix, or Ansoffs Matrix is good to use in any situation. Discuss, or using Ansoffs Matrix can significantly help a business. Do you agree? That kind of stuff. And then you're going to have a big question, aren't you? You're going to maybe have a 20 marker, or you're going to have at least more than a 10 marker on that, or something like that. And he says it depends. The objectives of the business. Okay, what are you actually trying to do? So if you are someone who is only trying to develop things into your own market, if you're just trying to make small incremental changes, and you're not looking to diversify, you're not looking to do market development and things like that, you're only really looking to do market penetration and probably product development, then you don't need Ansoffs Matrix, do you? Because you're just going to be doing the same thing again and again. Oh yeah, we're doing market. Oh, it's medium risk. This. Well, it isn't medium risk because we know how to deal with this. We're a lot more confident doing this. So what is it the actual business is trying to physically do? Also, it might, you might say, oh, we're going to do some diversification because it's a good opportunity to make some more money, or some market development because there is a new market here to sell to and things like that. But what if your main objective is survival because you're a very brand new business? Then that might throw you off in the wrong direction. So you've got to be careful, decide what your objectives are before you do it. The strategies of competitors' businesses, so what are they physically doing? Or is there loads of people diversifying? Is there no one diversifying? Remember, you might be a gap in the market, but if there's no market in the gap, there's no point of doing it, is there? So is there an actual point of you physically doing this or not? The structure of the market as well is a big one, isn't it? So is it monopolistic? Is it a monopoly? Is it oligopoly? Is it really saturated? Is it not? The attitudes of key decision makers, really important, this one, isn't it? So the HR of the business, the management style of the business, are they theory X, theory Y? Are they autocratic? Are they democratic? Are they laissez-faire? This will all matter because it will make a decision. If are they really foolhardy? Are they scientific decision makers? Do they tend to go with the gut? Do they take other people's opinions on, or do they tend to just jump into things without much thought? It depends on the situation, doesn't it? And you'll have to make a decision on whether you think this is appropriate or not. Because if you say, oh, well, diversification is the most risky and we need to have a look into the market research and stuff like that, you might just get a leader who goes, well, I don't care what you think because I'm making that decision. In which case, you might as well not bother with the process in the first place. It's just a waste of time. The size of the business as well is hard, isn't it? Remember, I was saying that the diversification and thing is going to be quite difficult for businesses that are brand new. The bigger the business, hopefully the simpler it'll be. Still be high risk because people like Tesco have tried to do it and failed, even if theirs was only market development. But they have moved into other things. Tesco have moved in, diversified, into clothes, into mobile phones. I think bank, insurance. So they have done things and been very successful in them. So don't underestimate them. And the strengths of the business as well. So is it something that they are good at? Have they got that brand recognition? Have they got something that they can work on and things like that? Okay. Now, so it says, if needed, which you might as well, review through the summary notes, complete your own summary sheet on page 6 or make it your own to check your understanding. Okay, so market penetration, product development, market development, diversification. So questions here, what is the definition of it? So what physically is it? Is it new products in a new market? Is it new products in same market? Is it new markets? What is it? How do we physically do it? So, do we move into a new market? Do we, develop a new product? Do we, do a marketing campaign to try and do these things? Have a think about what you would do, because you might come up with some really good examples of these, and go and have a look for an example that you can use in an exam situation. So go and have a look on the internet, have a look in a book if you've got it, on examples of market development, examples of market penetration, examples of product development, to see what you can do. But a lot of it you can figure out yourself. If you say to me, okay, well, we're going to do product development, I'm going to do the iPad for Apple. Well, yeah, it was, wasn't it? Not afterwards. When they were making, new products that were essentially the same products, you could argue that it's just market penetration again, because essentially they're just incremental changes or between product development and that. But they haven't really done anything brand new, haven't they? They're not going into a massive different things. They haven't diversified massively. I suppose you could say that they've diversified into headphones and things like that, but they're all variations on the theme, not massively diversified. Yeah, okay, so that's a really good one. Have a go at that. It's really good to have a go at. Now, have a look at this one. It says, evaluate the usefulness of Ansoffs Matrix to different businesses. Have a go at this one as well, but I'd like you to pick one of your own as well. So do this one. Feel free to do these, but... Oh, here's the cat. What are you doing? Go on. Go on. He always wants to show his face, doesn't he? Or rather, his backside to the camera. Feel free to get one, because I always think it's really useful in an exam to have some businesses that you can rely on knowing a little bit about. And yes, we've talked about businesses in class, and I'll have my own ones that I tend to go to talk about and things like that. But if you've got a couple of them in the bank where you're going, right, okay... if Ansoffs Matrix comes up, I'm going to talk about this, or if it's applicable, or I've got a couple of businesses I know a little bit about. Don't go into it not knowing much about business, because you're crippling your chances of doing well, aren't you? Remember about the bell curve and things like we talk about in the exam. Are you more prepared, equally prepared, or less prepared than the average student? And obviously for you guys, people who'll be taking the exams next year, we don't know what's going to happen. You guys are disadvantaged to an extent over if you hadn't done it. If you had been at college, because you'd have got all that extra time, even with these videos and stuff like that. But are you doing more, the same, or less than the average student? If you're doing more, you'll probably do better. If you're doing the same, you'll probably do medium. And if you're doing less, then you'll probably do worse than the average student. We don't know, but you can make assumptions, can't you, to an extent? So this can really help doing stuff like this. So how might Cadbury's use Ansoffs Matrix? It can be really helpful for them, can't they? Because they do go into a wide range of stuff. If you look into Cadbury, they've gone into all sorts. It's usually product development. So they usually go into it's usually all based on a theme, but I bet there is, they've gone into hot chocolates and things like that, isn't it? That's probably more market development, because they've gone into drinks more than they have chocolate and things like that. They haven't really diversified massively. They do Easter eggs, don't they? They do things, but it's all variations on a theme. How might a service business like Direct Line Insurance use the Ansoffs Matrix? Well, for Direct Line would be a bit of an interesting one, wouldn't it? Because they'd have to look at what products and services they actually do. So they do the customer service is a product for them, isn't it? It's one that they actually physically do. One of their main things is cold calling people, or rather being available to... I don't know if Direct Line do cold call people, but you know what I mean? Having that really strong customer service thing there, and going into different types of insurances, maybe house insurance, maybe things like that. So for them, it might be helpful, because it might show them, if insurances take a hit, have they got a mixed portfolio to be able to take that hit or not? How might the usefulness of Ansoffs Matrix vary for different businesses? Well, I would say for Cadbury, with the use of Boston Matrix, would be much more useful to them for overall the product management, the product portfolio stuff. But if they were trying to make decisions about moving forward, Direct Line would have to make a decision, wouldn't they, about, well, it's going to be variations on a theme for Direct Line as well, isn't it? Are they going to diversify and go into something completely different? I think that Cadbury would be more likely to do that. They might go into crisps or something, because... but would they? I don't know. It probably wouldn't work with the Cadbury name. Do you see what I mean? So it's a case of you finding a business that you like and thinking, well, actually, I know a little bit about these. I'm going to use them as my example, and then you can bring them up in an exam then, can't you? Now, if we were to have a look at an exam question, this one, it says Organauts is a company that makes organic porridge. They currently sell plain porridge oats, which are selling well. By considering Ansoffs Matrix, analyse the different marketing strategies the company could implement in order to grow. So, 10-mark question, really simple this one, okay? By considering the Ansoffs Matrix, remember, not discussing, not evaluating, so we don't need AO4, analyse, AO3, the different marketing strategies the company could use to implement in order to grow. So what we're saying here is, what is Ansoffs Matrix? There's 4 different ones, isn't it? This is how we'd answer it. Do your definitions for what they are, and then simply just say what they could do. So that's it, and then you've got 2 marks for each bit. Or sorry, there's 4 different ones, so 2 and 3 for some. 2 3s, 2 2s. So all we do for this one, for the Ansoffs Matrix one, is we'd say, okay, well, the first one's market penetration. It is where we're selling same products to the same market. So we could do a we could reduce the price slightly. We could do a sale on the oats that we're currently selling. That would be brilliant. That's fine. Done. Next one. We could do product development, couldn't we? So product development is slightly more riskier, but we could, in this case, we could, because remember it says the company, so there's some A or two in this, we could move away from the original oats that we're selling, and we could sell oats infused with fruit or infused with other things, chocolate or anything like that. We could develop it a little bit more and sell a range of products that were based on the oats idea, but oats with or an oat based product. Okay, or we could go with market development. We could continue to develop them. Develop a market, so a new market, existing products into a new market. So maybe we could start selling them to health food shops if we're already in the health food shops. Maybe we could start selling them to I don't know, what could oats be for, I don't know, some kind of massage treatment or something, or maybe to put in yogurts and stuff like that. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter what you suggest. Something that would just do a brand new market for it. So you could sell it with, if you sold it with a yogurt thing, that would be a new market, wouldn't it? You've not gone into them kind of things before. Or you could sell oats to, on a grand scale, you could maybe be a supplier for other companies. That would be a brand new market, wouldn't it? Or you could diversify completely and make a chocolate bar. It wouldn't even have to have oats involved. You could start making cars. No, probably wouldn't suggest it, but it's, you could if you wanted to, just like Virgin did. They moved into a completely different market, didn't they? So that kind of sums us up. It takes us to the end of Ansoffs Matrix. It's not the hardest thing to understand, but it is something that it needs a little bit of time to go over it, a little bit of time to really get to grips with understanding. So let's have a little look at the news. Okay, now yeah, okay, well, the news has been horrible over the last couple of days. Chap in America got killed by some police. That's been the main thing. There's been rioting. And I have to say, that piece of film is deeply, deeply disturbing. Like, it really shocked and upset me. And I've got a pretty hard sort of composition for this kind of stuff, But it was very, very shocking, and I think it needs to be seen, and it needs to shock people, because it was an absolutely disgusting thing, and a man was murdered. I'm just completely lost for words. I can understand the anger, the frustration. The only thing which people need to be so careful about is there is a global pandemic on, people. Of course we need to protest. Of course we need to. It's a massive injustice. This is absolutely horrible what's happened. But ultimately we could be causing a peak and a thing. We need to protect people as well. So it's something that we just need to be really, really careful with this. And I hope that the guy gets justice. It'll be no help. It'll be no comfort to the family that they'd lost the father, and a friend, and people will miss that guy just because of who he was. But it's not the point, is it? The fact it's 2020 and this is happening too often, and you can understand the upset and the how people are feeling, especially when you've got Donald Trump and people like that making flippant comments about things like that. It's just not the time. I don't think it's appropriate any time to make flippant comments like that. But it really is. It really is a worry. But anyway, so let's try not to talk about that too much now, because it's as I said, it's just very upsetting, and just it's been playing on my mind anyway. It's just not a nice thing at all. So that's what it's talking about over here, where it says protesters defy curfew in cities across the US after the death of a black man at the hands of police. Shocking piece of video. Absolutely horrible. Primark says no special discounts. Okay, let's go to this. It says Primark says no special discounts when shops reopen. Primark is planning to reopen all of its 153 stores in England on the 15th of June when lockdown restrictions are lifted. During lockdown, the clothing chain has built up almost 2 billion worth of stock to sell, double its normal stock holding. However, bargain hunters will be less disappointed after the firm said there will be no special discounting. The stock will be sold in the normal course of business, albeit at a later date. The company said it had 1.5 billion of stock on hand, plus a commitment to suppliers to buy another 400 million's worth. It normally holds 900 million pounds worth of stock. Now we know, don't we? We know how detrimental holding this amount of stock in is. That's mental. That is really, really crazy having that amount of stock. So that is going to be a detriment to this company. They need to do something about it because, excuse me, but if they don't, we might see the end of Primark. Because that's not going to be able. They're not going to be able to do things with that. We've got billions worth of stock. It's a big company, but I think they might be doing it. It says some of the latter will be held back to spring 2021, and the rest will be sold in the normal course of business. 37 shops in Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales will reopen later in June, pending further guidance. It is also pulled forward the opening of a new store in the Trafford Centre, Manchester, to 15th of June. It was originally planned to open in the third quarter of the year. The company has already reopened more than 100 stores across Europe, including 32 in Germany, 25 in Spain and 20 in the Netherlands. It said that it's learned lessons on the openings and would be carried forward to the UK. Social distancing protocols, hand sanitised stations, perspex screens at tills and additional clearing of high-frequency touch points in the store. I don't think you're going to be able to do it, Primark. It's a difficult one, this, because people love touching stuff in Primark. So how are you gonna keep people safe? People are thinking this lockdown thing, it's like the coronavirus has just gone away. It hasn't. People are dying every day. I know the government have decided to lift the lockdown and everything. Everybody seems like it's all a great thing. You go for a drive now and you see loads of people out and about and having a great time. And it's terrifying. I just hope that people are going to be safe and that they don't get it. I don't wish it on anyone. It's not something you would wish on someone. It says Ted Baker seeks extra funds. In other retail news, Ted Baker has said it's planned to raise 95 million to slash debt and to help pay for a transformational plan. The announcement came as the fashion chain reported a loss of 79.9 million for the year 25th of January. Wow, 80 million loss. The fashion blamed loss on 84% of non-underlying expenses, including £45.8 million of inventory charges after an investigation found it had overstated the value of its stock. We talked about that. Do you remember? We talked about window dressing, overvaluing your stock. That window dressing is, remember, illegal. Overvaluing your stock is probably illegal. You're not allowed to do that, but that's just a detriment to everyone if you do that as well. It's detriment to yourself. It says, to turn things around, the retailer has announced a new strategy it calls Ted's Growth Formula and will involve stabilising its foundations, driving growth and enhancing operational excellence. Ted Baker has started to gradually reopen stores, primarily in Europe, and is planning for further reopenings as governments relax lockdown rules. Again, I don't know. I know that from an economic point of view, we need to reopen things, but it's still a dangerous thing. I think we need to draw attention to this because it's a big thing for the country, and we need to be aware of the external environment and things like this. So let's have a look. It says primary schools are back open in some, but surveys suggest half of parents might keep the children at home. A very mixed local picture. Children in reception years 1 and years 6 able to return. Many have been out of school for 10 weeks. It comes as lockdown measures are eased in England, including groups of 6 people allowed to meet outside. Where are they getting that from? They're just making it up, aren't they? Education Secretary Gavin Williamson said children will be with their teachers and friends again. Yeah, they might die, they might get a horrible disease, but I don't mean to be too flippant with it, but it's crazy to me. This is absolutely crazy. Like, it's completely up to parents to make their own decisions about stuff. But what if a kid gets ill? Will they feel justified then? Will they feel happy about it? Luckily, my son's not of school going age, but I don't know how I would feel. Well, I do know how I'd feel about it. I definitely wouldn't be doing it. And my thing's for the teachers as well. Of course, I'm going to say that because it's from my perspective. But a teacher doesn't go to school to put themselves at risk. I was 10% worried, but 90% thinking it was the right thing to do. The main thing is normality for his mental health. Yeah, I'm sure they're devastated. Yeah, I'm sure the kids are really upset that they've not been going to school. Yeah, that Xbox has been terrible for them. I bet they've been really upset. any any family kids that I know are really happy about it. They've been loving the lockdown. They've been thinking it's fantastic. It's just, especially with the weather, they've been going on like they've been going on walks. They've been going out. They can play on the Switch or whatever it is they're doing. 50% of parents in schools in disadvantaged areas will keep it. Interesting. It is interesting when you look at the figures. How it says. I can take them to school, but I can't get his hair cut. How can I send them to school now, knowing it will be impossible for teachers to implement social distancing? Well, yeah, it's true. It's not safe for her to go back to school, saying it's definite no from me. Yeah, well, I mean, look at the state of it. You've got the Parliament aren't even back in. So yeah, but you know what? At least we've got this return of elite sports in England. Hey, let's have a look at this. Horse racing. Yeah, okay. All contests are limited to 12 starters to a maximum of 120 runners will line up at Gosforth Park. Strict hygiene and social distancing protocol will be in place. Oh yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm at a loss with it. Oh, look at this one. What's this guy saying? Who's this? A towel and bedding stall in Barnsley Outdoor Market. It's been hard financially, but our business can now get cracking. It says Neil Conway, who runs a towel and bedding stall at Barnsley Outdoor Market with his wife Suzanne. Open air markets and car showrooms will be allowed to reopen in England on Monday. As with garden centres, says the risk of transmission COVID-19 is lower in these outdoors than more open spaces. They have no idea. How could they possibly know that? They've no idea. They're making it up. It doesn't make sense. Where's the evidence? Why won't they show us the evidence of this rather than just saying that? I mean, it seems a bit random, doesn't it? I can kind of understand the outside thing, but you're opening very sporadic things here. It will try to keep their customers safe. The pair have printed new signs to encourage shoppers to keep a 2 metre distance. I understand for these guys, they're a small business. This is the reality of it, isn't it? They're having to try and get back on their feet because, they're not going to, are they? Oh, yeah, did you see this? I don't know. Hopefully they're not going to show anything physical. No, they haven't. Okay. Yeah, have you seen this? I saw this the other day. Amazon UK, racist abuse on their website. This is something that they need to do something about in terms of have some kind of system to check this kind of things, because I don't know why someone would do this, but the people had removed the pictures of different products and then put racist slurs on there instead. What a strange thing to do. It was unclear for how long the racist language remained on the site, but it sparked outrage on Twitter. We've investigated, removed images in question, and took action against the bad actor. The company did not elaborate on bad actor nor give details on how many products were defaced or how long the abuse was visible on the listings. A journalist for the Huffington Post tweeted that the abuse needs to be acknowledged, removed, explained, apologised for. Being black right now is hard enough. We don't need to be called the N-word while shopping online. I think that is, it's a reflection of what's going on in America, isn't it? But that's crazy. What the hell's going on when Amazon aren't even on this? And I can't believe nothing like this has happened before. I think it's interesting, actually, if we take it back to what YouTube do, because YouTube are extremely good at controlling things. I don't know if you remember, but Prince, the artist, he used to keep everything off YouTube, and they said, well, we can't keep things off YouTube because it's not something we can physically police because there's so much coming onto him. And he said, well, you keep porn off there and you keep sex and stuff off there, so therefore you can keep my stuff off there as well. And he's dead right, isn't he? And they did. You know what? He won and they did. So these companies do have the ability to be checking their site. They do have systems in place. They have AIs and stuff to be able to check through these stuff to make sure some kind of system that would allow. I'm not saying that they can't drop the ball occasionally, and I hope this is what this is, because I've never heard of Amazon being an issue before, but also Amazon Marketplace has come under scrutiny. There's been a concern about counterfeit goods appearing on the listings. There's definitely one. I've recently got into NBA stuff, basketball and stuff, and I've been buying these jerseys. They're quite expensive from Nike, but Nike have an app where you can scan a bit. It's got an RFID chip in the clothes, and you can scan it, and it tells you whether your clothes is legit or not. and it'll unlock something on a website and stuff like that. It's quite clever. But there is so much stuff, so many things on Amazon of fake ones because they don't have the proper markings on them. Why are Amazon allowing that? I'm damn sure that Nike aren't positive about that, or the NBA in that regard. They don't want that happening either, do they? So anyway, whoops. I hope it's been helpful for you today. Amazon. Ansoffs Matrix. We'll be back on it tomorrow. Yeah. So have a good day.